everyone, and thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Bill Bucko, happy to be with you, along with Tariq Spence. How you doing, man? Good week?
Enjoying the summer, enjoying the week, enjoying the Olympics.
Well, that's a good thing. We'll talk about that later. Pat Duffy wearing a uniform that I admit I could not identify.
Both
originally.
of you guys, I'm ashamed of you. This is the essential early 90s NBA jersey. It's a Grant Hill Detroit Pistons jersey.
Number 33.
Yeah, the draft, Isaiah Stewart, Rochester local, hoping they're landing another superstar this week, huh?
Yeah, but kind of like, what could have been with a number 33.
Totally.
Great Duke player, though.
Is there such a thing as a great Duke player?
Grant Hill is that
You
great
can't
Duke
say
player.
that. Hey, let's talk college football. A little bit of college basketball, since these things are interrelated. The Oklahoma-Texas story, I thought, was extremely intriguing this week. The whole idea of them going to the SEC, and then all the other dominoes potentially falling. And in 5 years, as a football fan, a basketball fan, where do you think we're going to be in 5 years?
I don't think people are going to care as long as there's a playoff and as many people can get into the playoff as possible. I love the fact that this is interesting, that they want to do this, 2025. So they're letting them know now, Big 12, whatever you're going to do.
Well, there's contractual
reasons why and media, and I get all that stuff. But I think it's interesting that they would do that. I also find it interesting, Big 12, I think this past bowl season went 5-0, so they're a pretty decent conference. They start losing these two players, you put them over in the SEC, which we all know is the best conference there is, and then you look at the Big 10, and you look at who's going to go to the Big 12. I think it really just does matter who is in this quote-unquote playoff and how far they go. But I like to see the rivalry, to see Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. You can see a lot of intrigue in all of these games.
But it's bigger than that even. They talk about, the Big Ten has to respond and they'll merge with the Pacificos and the ACC will join the SEC. And they said they're going to have a model that looks a lot more like the NFL than college, and that all stems from something that you've been an advocate of forever, is paying players.
100%. And look, why wouldn't you do it that way? What do you have, 120 some odd NCAA football programs? Let's stick with the football for now. Why would you not do 4 30-team divisions? Let them duke it out amongst each other, and then
4 30-team divisions.
I mean, it would be 4 NFL seasons, right? And you wouldn't have this complete anarchy of teams that are always good and teams that are always bad, right? I mean, those would eventually even themselves out. It would make the playoffs so much easier. You break them down to 4 divisions, you win your division, you leave your 30-team conference, and then the top 4 play each other. It makes perfect sense.
And the thing is, I think we all win with this. And I rolled out, when you brought that up, it made me think, it's one of my favorite things. It actually comes from soccer, which is the only favorite thing I have from soccer. Roll out a relegation league. So you got 3 divisions, and you've got teams that are switching within the divisions. It works.
The problem with relegation, I thought of that too. I got all excited about, relegation would be fun. You get an SMU problem, right? Where if a team gets relegated to a lower division or the lowest division, well, you might as well kick that program off of the face of the earth, because none of these kids that are major prospects are going to want to play in a double relegated team, right?
And listen, let's just expand the playoff right now. You're talking about how many teams? 40 teams, 40, close to 50 teams. That sounds like a Sweet 16 type of deal. Mm-hmm. If you go to what Duffy was talking about and extend that even further, play a less regular season games, get to that tournament as quickly as possible, and get to a national championship, we're building up a lot of momentum for that big game.
I'd like to follow up on the relegation thing. I mean, what athlete that could go, let's say, to Alabama would choose SMU under the current situation? At least a school like Southern Methodist University would have a path, if they were to get good, to actually accomplish something, which they don't have right now.
I mean, it's a valid point, but I would disagree that they don't have a path right now, because you see these schools come out of nowhere, right? I mean, look, none of them have made it into the playoffs yet. These smaller schools, like Coastal Carolina is what comes to mind first off, but it's only a matter of time before schools like that break that ceiling. Boise State being the last one. Now, they're a legitimate name college football program in the country. Patience, my friend. No relegation. Patient negation.
It isn't morally clean, but I think, to give you the last point on this thing, as a fan of college football, wouldn't this be great?
I would. I mean, every week, and competing almost with the NFL, as long as they keep it away. Saturday games, maybe a Friday game, maybe a Thursday game, and then you go to the bowl games after that. I look forward to what's going to happen with the media coverage for this, because remember, there's a lot of different teams now putting it all in one area. They share that money, they share that network. That's a lot of pies split different ways. So we'll see if the money shakes out.
This is the Rochester Press Box. We're talking Buffalo Bills next.
Original Bay Goodman Pizza, located on the corner of North Winton at Browncroft. There are 3 ways to get the original Bay & Goodman delivery. Go to baygoodman.com.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Pat Duffy talking Buffalo Bills. As things start, I don't know that there's any avoiding the fact that the number one topic of conversation is going to be this whole vaccine issue in the NFL and, forfeits and the whole separation between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated.
Yeah, it got uncomfortable, especially for the Bills last week on social media. You have Cole Beasley doing what Cole Beasley's been doing, and then all of a sudden the team splits off into segments, and they're tweeting at each other, Jerry Hughes and Cole Beasley going back and forth, and you have other players in the NFL going off. Again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. You had to see this coming eventually, like it was going to happen, but that being said, as much as this is not fun for a lot of Bills fans right now, and you might worry about the cohesion of the Bills units, first of all, you remember the bickering Bills back in the day. They did just fine. That was okay. And second, when you look at other issues that teams are facing right now, for example, Deshaun Watson in Houston and Chargers over there, Xavier Howard in Miami, who asked for a trade earlier this week, best corner in football, arguably. If I had to have an issue that my team was facing, I would much rather have this than the things we've seen traditionally and seen with other teams.
Look at Washington, though. Look at the way they're basically handling this situation. Ron Rivera basically saying, you know what, I'm really disappointed. We have like 50% of our players are vaccinated. And it's frustrating to him. He can't get players to vaccinate. You're right, Duffy. I think the problems of other teams in the NFL, this is just one of those issues. And I think if the Bills can find a way to make this all work and go forward, they'll be fine. But you're right. There's a lot of teams in the NFL that have injury issues, player issues, health issues before we even start camp.
Yeah, Rivera, you got to listen to him when he speaks because not only is he a presence, but he's a cancer survivor.
And he's
at risk.
He's immunocompromised. Yes, exactly. Like, he's directly at risk by the folks that aren't vaccinated. You understand the passion behind that guy's argument.
Yeah, but I don't, you say that this is a better situation to be dealing with than, the other stuff that we're accustomed to. I don't know. This is awfully big. I mean, when is the last time the NFL even suggested the word forfeit in anything that they produce?
In regards to the rules, yeah, no, you're right. This is big, but I think the problem with that, and look, if there was one point that I think both sides can agree on that Cole Beasley's made, it's the way that the NFL has decided to do testing amongst everybody. So as far as I understand it, and if I'm wrong, correct me. If you're a vaccinated player, you get tested once a week. If you're an unvaccinated player, you get tested every single day. But we've seen in other leagues that vaccinated players, I mean, look, there are breakthrough infections. It happens, right? So why would you not continue to test everybody every single day? That actually protects against teams that would have to forfeit games, right? Like, if you have...
They're attempting. This is intentional. They're separating these, and they're forming, they're putting pressure on these guys. We led last week talking about the SEC and how they were being proactive about the whole thing. The NFL is saying, look, you can't go to the restaurants, you have to stay in your hotel on the road, you can't go in the steam room, you can't do this, you're tested every day, But if you want to do that, it's all right. But they're making it awfully tough.
It's a pressure force. I think that's the best way to use it. It's a pressure force to make sure that everybody is at least vaccinated, and we did everything we could to make sure that our players were as safe as possible. Listen, you have institutions, you have companies that have 90% vaccination. You have healthcare facilities that have 90% vaccination. For this particular situation, there's a lot of information, misinformation, mistrust, and you're going to have that right now with a team that is supposed to be unifying right now to go for a championship.
And what really surprised me too is the NFL Players Association just hopped right on board. They said, "Yep, we're in on this."
But I mean, it's money. It all comes down to money. And look, I don't mean to sound...
Well, they're talking about forfeiting paychecks in addition to forfeiting games.
Yes, but they want as many of those players vaccinated as possible because, that's going to lead to fewer incidents down the road. I guess the whole thing is, I understand what the NFL is doing. I get it. I understand wanting everybody vaccinated. I get that. The problem is the penalties that show up potentially could still show up with vaccinated players because they say there'll be penalties for unvaccinated players. Well, let's say you do have a breakout infection, which again is possible. Does that team get punished? Is a team that the next week do you do it based on percentage of unvaccinated players infected versus vaccinated?
I've read as much as I could on this, and it doesn't make any sense to me, but they're saying if it's unvaccinated players, we're coming after you.
But I feel like they left it vague on purpose. The NFL did so they can be malleable in the season, much like what happened with Tennessee against Buffalo. I read that on a calendar this week, in week 4. Like, look, I'm all about public health, but the way that the NFL is handling this does seem a little bit weird to me.
Heavy-handed, perhaps, but I think justified.
Great Aquinas education.
Valuable.
One word, 4 years of tuition.
Yeah, break that down by letter. This is the Rochester Press Box, and Like It or Not is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
All of these things show Josh Allen has a strive for greatness inside of him.
Falcon Around with Carl Falk. New episodes every Tuesday on Rock Sports Now.
Here's the Press Box trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Are you facing criminal charges from a DWI and feel that you never imagined it could happen to you? Contact attorneys with years of experience as prosecutors and defenders. Contact Ganguly Brothers Law today for a free consultation. You can put your trust in us.
Hello and welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, a segment of the Press Box, Like It or Not, brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law, attorney with years of defending the accused. Don't go unprepared. Contact Ganguly Law today. Tariq.
Yes.
Like it or not, the Olympics so far.
Like it, a bit of a turn in certain areas, but I will say this. I will recommend a sport for you. You're going to think I'm crazy, all right? And it actually goes to the NBA theme back when the 80s, 90s were so rough. Team handball.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see how physical it was?
I'm all in on handball.
On team handball, women's. I didn't even see the guys. Women's. And I'm not talking Team USA. I'm talking anytime you see team handball, you should watch it.
Were you watching the women's Korean team handball game where that one was getting manhandled in front of the net? Oh, man, was that Bill. You got to watch handball.
It's,
Right.
I'm telling you, don't sleep. It is all slap in the face 80s, 90s NBA basketball.
So this isn't the summer version of curling.
No,
it's not. By the way, how many steps do you get to take? Because it's like,
I think it's 3.
Okay, is it 3? Because it's like LeBron has the ball moving up court. Because I'm counting like 5 or 6 steps. They're not blowing any whistles.
Who are the good countries at this?
I have no idea.
care.
No, I
I
don't
don't
care.
care.
I'm watching any handball that shows up.
It's really good. I'm telling you right now.
Well,
It's
see,
a
I was prepared to
surprise.
say, like, and I felt guilty. I haven't watched any Olympics, and I can't find myself engaged in this yet. But you guys have given me a reason to live.
Yeah, it was just, well, it was sports and it was on in the middle of the day, so.
And oddly enough, the basketball team doing poorly, in relative terms,
Sure.
is a plus. And, like, in terms of going to watch them, people are now they're expecting a competitive game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, was that French game all that surprising though? I mean, France is the last team to beat the U.S. They have
The U.S. is a 12-point favorite.
Okay, yeah, but you're also a 12-point favorite that lost to Nigeria in a tune-up and lost to, was it Australia in a tune-up? I mean, France.
They keep dismissing this stuff, It's like, it's just an exhibition. And you're running out of
But
excuses.
these are NBA players. I hope people realize these
Well,
are NBA players
5.
playing for another country.
5 NBA players.
Good enough to beat the 12 pro players.
How do you
good
see
point.
them doing? Where do you think they finish?
The U.S. men's team? Listen, if they get to a medal round, I'd be happy.
Just the round?
The medal round, I'd be happy. Going for a bronze or going for a gold.
Wow. Like it or not, the Norwegian beach volleyball team was fined for wearing shorts instead of bikini bottoms.
So I find this so funny, and actually, I've been watching the Olympics with my daughters since it's been on, right? So we turned on beach volleyball, women's beach volleyball, and I've watched this forever on the Olympics. Didn't really occur to me. My 8-year-old daughter asked me, "Daddy, why are they wearing bathing suits?" I don't know. I didn't have an answer. It had just always been that way. So then we're watching gymnastics, men's gymnastics, and it comes on, and the guys doing the floor exercises wear shorts over their leotards. And my daughter goes, "Daddy, why do they wear shorts, but the girl gymnasts wear bathing suits?" And she's asking me all these questions that I don't have answers to that are blowing my mind. Why don't you let these women wear pants? They want to wear pants.
How old is your daughter?
She's 8. She's 8 years old. And
There's some awareness there.
yeah, no, I mean, look, raising daughters, wives, right, girlfriends, how body issues are with women. It's not something I understand. It's based on my body. But, yeah, I don't understand the pushback against why don't you just let them cover up their butt if they want to? Because that's what this comes down to, right? I don't want to show off my butt. And some of those camera angles, man, like I didn't realize it till I was watching it with my 8-year-old. Some of those camera angles on those beach volleyball things, you cannot tell me you're not doing that on purpose when the Brazilian team walks out there. You can't tell me. You can't.
You want to comment after that? I have every right to say I don't know the answer, and I don't mind a change immediately.
It's so funny. That was the same way. It's overtly sexist, just overtly, and you can't even make up an excuse for it. But I confess that I wasn't disappointed that the Olympic Committee decided, nah, that's okay.
I didn't see Norway, so I don't know what to tell you.
This is the Rochester Press Box, like it or not, brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law, and Unfinished Business is next.
The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. McArdle's is open 7 days a week with dining available indoors and out, takeout and delivery. Come home to McArdle's.
Came now to Eichel. He floated one. Score!
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. This is the Rochester Press Box. Time for Unfinished Business. Pat Duffy, start us off.
If Sean McDermott, head coach of the Buffalo Bills, is looking for a consultant, I'm available and I have a brilliant idea. Do not play a single Bills offensive or defensive starter for a single snap during the preseason this year, and it works twofold. One, the only issue the Bills are going to have when it comes to what happens this season is injuries in the preseason. And I'm knocking on wood. You can hear me, Bills fans. Why put yourself at that kind of risk rolling them out there? And second comes the superstitious reason, which you know I'm very superstitious when it comes to my sports. You had the best season you had in 30 years last year, and you didn't play a snap of NFL preseason games. It's unnecessary. Everybody that's there is coming back, minus Emmanuel Sanders. You didn't bring in some guy that needs to get brought up to speed that's going to make a massive difference. Bills fans are going to be holding their breath for every snap of every practice and preseason game. I will be watching through my fingers when these games start. Please, coach, don't make them play.
When it comes to sports, I've told you about this before. The decision is not yours. It's the athlete. Simone Biles made a decision during the Olympics that was best for Simone Biles. Now, I know a lot of people were kind of disappointed. She is, yes, the face of gymnastics, but she's the GOAT. She was going to be the GOAT whether or not she won gold at this Olympics or not. So let's accept the fact that this is where sports is going. We've mentioned this before. Michael Phelps, an Olympian, dealt with a number of different issues. Kyrie Irving is taking games off for his own mental health. Naomi Osaka, same sort of situation. This is where sports is going. It isn't so much the fact that the body is breaking down, but mentally and spiritually, a lot of athletes are doing the same thing. They're making the best decision for themselves. We don't really need to know why they don't want to play, but we have to accept the fact that that's their decision and move forward.
That really is the issue of the week. Do you ever wonder what it's like to be the GOAT? Greatest of all time? Since there's probably only a handful of such people presently on Earth, maybe that's a bit out of reach. How about being good at something? How about being competent at something? I used to be competent at a hockey game. That's the one where the players slid back and forth and you spun them around back in the days before video games rendered it obsolete. The trick for me was not to touch the goalie, plant him in the middle of the field, and allow the rest of the players to take you to ultimate victory. I was the best at that for a while, until I wasn't. So I stopped playing. I know exactly how Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka and Michael Phelps feel when they struggle with themselves. The pressure of being the best, the expectations, the mental strain. It is all so relatable. Of course it isn't. And of course I don't know it at all. None of us do. Simone Biles, the best gymnast in the history of her sport, needs a break at the Olympic Games, the chance to cope. And some of us feel let down by this. Stop. There are some things that we don't get an opinion on. This is one of them. That is Unfinished Business, and that is our show. Gentlemen, thank you very much, Tariq.
The Olympics will go on. Root for the Americans, root for anybody, root for handball.
Team handball.
Yep. And by the way, if you ever need to know what it's like to be the greatest of all time in anything, call me.
What is your...
Bubble hockey. I'm the greatest bubble hockey player of all time. It's called Super Checks. I've been looking to get one of my... You know those things cost like $5,000?
Oh, now they're antiques.
You still make them. They're expensive.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.